In this video, you'll learn how to solve equations with fractions. And this will be moderately challenging depending on your knowledge of how fractions work. And you need some prerequisite knowledge in least common denominator things. But I want to introduce you first to the key strategy. So our key strategy that you need to know and that we're going to use is multiplying by the least common denominator. That's our big key strategy, least common denominator. Okay, and just as a reminder, our denominator is, actually let's move this over a little bit. Our denominator is this number down here, that number on the bottom. And when we only have one fraction, our least common denominator is whatever the denominator is. But you need to know the key strategy is multiplying least common denominators for when we get into the multiple fraction examples. All right, let's work through why this is the key strategy, why we need to do this to solve equations with fractions. Well, when you multiply by the least common denominator or the denominator, what happens? Well, there's two ways to look at this. You either get 1/4 times 4 is the same as 1/4 times 4/1, which is, you know that fractions multiply this and this. You get 4/4, which just equals 1. A second way you can look at this is that when you have a fraction multiplied by the denominator, they cancel each other out, quotation marks. So that property of them canceling each other out is critical, absolutely necessary for solving equations with fractions. So that's our key strategy. Let's get into an example here. Let's look at, we're going to say this is example 1, multiply by denominator. Denominator. And this example is going to be x/4 equals 6. Okay? Think about that. How do we approach this? The way we approach it, and I'm going to put them in parentheses, is we multiply both sides by 4. And what that does for us is it cancels these out. X equals 4 times 6, which is 24. All right, that's why we multiply by the denominator. Let's go ahead and bust out example 2 right here. That's going to be fraction plus whole number. Fraction plus whole number. Okay? And let's just make this a hashtag. So now let's write this example out. X divided by 3 plus 2 equals 7. All right. There's a couple of ways you could approach this, but let's stick with that key thing, using the denominator, using the multiply by denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3 because our denominator is 3. We're going to distribute our 3 out. When we get 3 times x over 3, we just get 3x over 3. In other words, we get x. X plus, we got to make sure we distribute that 3 onto the 2. We get 6 equals 21. And we go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides, and we get x equals 15. All right, let's move on to another third example for you. That's going to be multiple fractions. Multiple fractions. Example 3. Multiple fractions. Multiple, not multiply, multiple. There we go. There we go. Example 3, multiple fractions. All right, let's do x over 2 plus x over 4 equals 4. All right, so now we need to remember our least common denominator strategy. So when we look at this, what is our least common denominator? What's the smallest number that each of these will go into? That would be 4. 2 can go into 4, and 4 can go into 4. So that's our least common denominator. So we want to multiply both sides of the equation, because again, whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other, by 4. Okay, multiply by 4. All right, so we distribute it to both, and we get 4x over 2 plus, well, 4x over 4 is just x, equals 16. All right, 4x over 2, how do we address this? Well, we're going to keep the x, so the x is going to be kept. And we just need to focus on our, let me get this over here, we just want to focus on our numbers. How many times does 2 go into 4? It goes into it 2 times. So that means we have 2 x's. 4x divided by 2 equals 2x. Plus x equals 16. And finally we need, well, second to finally, we need to combine like terms. We get 3x equals 16. And then we divide both sides by 3. Divide both sides by 3. And we get x equals 16 divided by 3. And we can we simplify that? That could be a number. And the number it could be is 5 and 1/3. 5 and 1/3. So it could be expressed also as 5 and 1/3. Though these, though that is a valid answer, 16 over 3, and it could also be expressed as 5.33 repeating. All of which are valid. Okay, you're gonna get these types of answers here. As we start working with these fractions, you're gonna have answers where it's 16 over 3. A lot of times, the preferred way to express it is this one, or a terminating decimal is also a good way to express it. Mixed numbers are going to kind of fall out of fashion as we advance in algebra, so get used to the pink and the green answer. Now, the common mistake when we're doing these kind of problems is that we multiply only one term, and you cannot do that. You have to make sure that when you do this, you distribute it. Don't lose sight of that distribute. You get introduced to a new concept and you lose one of those old ones. So you have to remember to distribute. So now let's set up a set of practice questions for you to work through on your very own. Okay, here's a set for you to work through. Then I'll work through them for you to observe. All right, starting top left, pink, we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 6, the denominator, and we get x equals 30. We're going to shift over to the top right green, and we have, okay, let's go ahead and multiply by the denominator. Multiply by the denominator. These two cancel out, and you distribute this. Make sure you distribute to both sides, and you get x plus 12 equals 36. You subtract 12 from both sides, and you will get x equals 24. And which one of these? Here it is. X equals 24. That's the first two. Let's move on to our second 2. We're going to have to scroll down, make a little room. And again, we have, okay, this is an interesting one. We're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. We will get 2x equals 24. And we'll have to take a second step by dividing both sides by 2. And we will get the answer x equals 12. All right, let's take on the top right here. And let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 5. Let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 5. Okay, these 2 will cancel out. We're distributing them out. We get x plus 5 equals, we go ahead and distribute them out, and we get x plus 20. Okay, now, if you were paying attention in the last lesson, we're going to subtract x from both sides, and we get 5 equals 20. This is a no solution. No solution. So that might have been a little bit of a curveball for you, but I wanted to test your acumen. So that's it for this video on solving equations with fractions. And the next one will solve equations with decimals. Have a great time, and thank you for joining me.